sacks and a fumble. And as a result, the Packers finish with the 37-20 loss. And so Green Bay's impressive season comes up one game shy of the Super Bowl. Here is Aaron Rodgers after the loss.
It's a little raw right now for sure, but it definitely hurts, I'd say, a little more than early in the career, just because you realize just how difficult it is to get to this spot. And with all the changes this offseason and with all the installation of a new system and a new program, to get to this point, you felt like it was something special because it, just didn't really make sense. We weren't picked by most people to win our division. And we found a way to not only do that, but win a home playoff game and get to this spot. Just kind of felt like it was meant to be almost. So that is a little disappointing, a little more disappointing. Then you realize, I don't have the same number of years ahead of me as I do behind me. So it's slightly more disappointing.
Interestingly enough, Aaron Rodgers has reminded us about how many years he has left and how far he's come a number of times so far this season. He is well aware of what he's got left. So, Danny, I ask you, is the Super Bowl window all but shut on the Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers?
No, he's still got the physical skill set to take a team to the Super Bowl. I mean, if you look at his production the last few years, it hasn't tapered off at all. His completion percentage is down slightly. The touchdowns are down a little bit, but they didn't need him to do much more than that. I still think he's, we're talking about Patrick Mahomes. Aaron Rodgers was in that conversation before we were just having about how unbelievably gifted he is. Aaron Rodgers has that. Now, it's maybe slightly less, but there was a time when everybody unanimously would have said, yeah, Aaron Rodgers is that guy. That was an underwhelming performance from him. Earlier in the show, I was talking about how I felt like he had been spooked in the pocket. I do think that the pass rush got to him, but probably one of the most disappointing things to me in Aaron Rodgers, and maybe it's throughout his career, it's going to sound sort of dumb, but the body language. Like, where is the ability to go in there and light your team up and encourage them and get your players to really, truly play around you with more inspiration, as opposed to, hey, I'm going to go out there and deliver every time. That's what he does. And, like, there's a fumble out there. Watch the body language on this one. And he just watches it go down, and he's ticked off. I get it. But he just watches it. It just goes. And he didn't. Cam Newton got skewered in the Super Bowl for not jumping on a fumble and just letting it go. Where is that criticism of Aaron Rodgers? And there's a body language that's just indifferent. And I wish there was a little bit more of a fiery, like Mahomes did when they were down against the Texans. When he goes over to the sideline, it's like, gets into his offensive line and says, we're going to go do something special. Where is that from Aaron Rodgers? And I don't know. You don't want to ask somebody to be somebody they aren't. But I look at him, and I do think that's one thing that's missing from his game.
So this one's tough for me because I really like Aaron. I know Aaron a very little bit. I think he's somewhat unfairly portrayed in the media. And once upon a time, I remember saying in 2010, a fake trade, if you would trade me, Aaron Rodgers, you can have my first-round pick in perpetuity. Every year he's on my team, you get my first-round pick. And I think it would have been a great trade for whoever got him. And from 09 to 14, he put up a 6-year run better than, statistically, any quarterback ever has. But the year is over. And he was really bad in the first half yesterday. Really bad. 2 turnovers, a 52 rating. He put up a lot of really good numbers and had an amazing throw to Devontae late. But when you're down 27-0 at half, I know at one point they cut it to 14, but that game was over at halftime for the second time against the Niners, by the way. And when you look at it, and you look at the fact that post-2014, he hasn't been great. He has only had one great season. That was 2016 when they got annihilated in the NFC Championship game by Atlanta. And then
40 touchdowns he had that year.
That was his one great year post-2014. But the defense was not up to the task. The team itself has only had one great year post-2014. That was this year as far as getting a bye, getting a top 2 seed. They get annihilated in the NFC Championship game. And once again, and I get his frustration, even if he won't say it, his teams on average have, going into this game, allowed 36 points per game in his playoff losses. They allowed 37 points in this loss. But the Aaron Rodgers era, as him being the best player in the league, competing for championships every year, I think it ended in 2014 and we were just late to the party. I think, and how did 2014 end? Conference championship game, up 2 scores on Seattle, and then the meltdown, not by him, but by the team at the end, the overtime, Russell Wilson, the onside kick, all of it. That was his last best chance to get to a Super Bowl until this one. And this one, they did not appear to be in San Francisco's league. You wonder that if San Francisco had lost the final game of the regular season, right? They had lost to Seattle, which they were a few inches from. Don't you think San Francisco, if they had to go on the road in round 2 to Green Bay, they could have done something very similar to this?
Absolutely.
No matter where this game was played, they just don't have, Green Bay doesn't have the horses to hold up with San Francisco unless Rodgers, and I hate to say it, can be Mahomes, and right now he's not that anymore, and I don't think he's going to be that at 37. He's one of the greatest quarterbacks I've ever seen, but I do think the era is over and the window is closed.
Are you guys with, I want to make sure, like, you don't think I'm crazy. Are you with me on the body language on the field? Because it almost looks like he's always dissatisfied with something. And we've crushed players historically. Jay Cutler is somebody that we always got on because he had bad body language. I feel like Aaron Rodgers is in that category, but he's had success, so we're okay with it.
But it's not just on the field. Press conferences. You could watch a press conference with the sound off and never know if he won or lost the game.
But that can be a good thing.
I was going to say, that could be even keeled. The press conference that he's not wearing his emotions on his sleeve. Here's the thing about his body language, and here's one of the reasons.
And it doesn't matter ultimately. That's why I'm wondering if it sounds corny.
Listen, in my experience, in not all of them, but historically, all-time great athletes that have immense expectations for those around them, sometimes unrealistic ones, sometimes during the game, can't hide it. Because what's I think the most fair knock on LeBron? He got bad body language, man. He will do a lot of that on the court. Now, you can get away with more of that in basketball than football as the quarterback, but we've seen this in the past from other guys who are great, but their success is reliant on other people doing their jobs. And I would imagine if you feel like I'm sure he feels, I might be the best person to ever do this, and I have been held back a bit, either by coaching or by ineffective teammates. Sometimes you can't keep the stone. Sometimes you can't hide that.
Right.
And so I think I do think it exists. I just think it's understandable, and it's something, when I say Aaron's unfairly portrayed, I think there's other guys with those same traits, and we pick at Aaron a little bit more because of how talented he is.
All right, much more to be discussed from this game, but we'll take a break. Coming up, who's got the edge in Super Bowl 50?